In 10 years of wandering about this political thicket, we have not yet found the burning bush of final explanation. So in striking down multi-member legislative districts in Dallas and Bexar counties, the three-judge panel referred attorneys to Exodus, chapter 3, verse 2, for its opinion of the state's threshing about in an effort to find an acceptable system of sending legislators to Austin. State Senator Oscar Mauzy was an attorney in the case and the author of the plan finally accepted today by the court.
Well, it brings about for the first time representative democracy, first of all, in that it allows each group of 74,000 citizens to elect their own state representative. Basically, the plan follows political subdivision lines, and by that I'm speaking of the suburban towns which have less than enough population for a district by themselves are put together. Cedar Hill, Duncanville, DeSoto, Lancaster, Wilmer, Hutchins, Seagoville, and Kleberg are in one district, for example. Grand Prairie is in a district by itself with part of Irving. Irving has another unit all by itself. Garland has a legislative district by itself. And then the city of Dallas is divided into districts of equal population.
So you have a political community of interest?
Yes, I think so, as the Constitution requires that community of interest be followed.
In the 64-page opinion handed down today, the court made it clear that, in its opinion, it would not stand for what it called the policy of allowing blacks to participate in democracy only through the benevolence of the white majority. As a practical matter, political pundits figure the Dallas County plan will send from 3 to 5 black legislators to Austin, and that Republicans have a shot at from 9 to 7 seats of the 18 in Dallas County. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News, on the move at the federal courthouse.
Oh, I think this is going to help the primary because a lot of people naturally were confused. They didn't know what to do. A lot of candidates had already spent some money in the area where they thought they were going to run, and so therefore I think that this gives them a better opportunity to go ahead and conduct the business as they wanted to in the beginning. And I'm always in favor of a plan that the state legislature, a district that the legislature might draw more than a federal court.
As far as what it means to the Republicans, I've probably got mixed feelings because it probably increases our chances to elect a second Republican congressman in Dallas County. At the same time, statewide, we, under the court-adopted plan, we had the opportunity to elect 7 or possibly 8 congressmen from Texas.
She had on her robe, and I assume pajamas. It looked like pajamas to me, and her house slippers. So
did she look okay?
Yeah, only she was pale. You know, naturally, not knowing where they was taking her or what they was going to do to her. You know, well, naturally she was a little frightened, and I would have been too.
Didn't you say there was a man with her when she walked up here at the house?
Well, yeah, my husband saw that, but they was on the far side of the street, but he didn't come on up the house with her. He, when she crossed the street, come over here, while he went back down the street. Evidently, he was going down that way to where they eventually found the truck, you know, that they was driving.
obviously someone's creating these rumors, and I'm not going to pinpoint who is doing this, but whether it's parents or children themselves, like I said before, I think it's up to a lot of us not to overreact on these rumors. If I had reacted to 4 rumors these past 2 days, I would have been in 4 different schools throughout the day. So I'm not going to overreact, and I hope that citizens throughout Dallas will not begin to overreact on these rumors.
I don't believe at this time, due to the way the organization is established and funded, that such a disbandment could take place, nor do I believe it should take place at this time.
Well, do you think in the future possibly that it could go under a private organization to make it perhaps more efficient?
No, the most anticipated and studied approach to a different or new approach is to put more of the activities within the neighborhoods under a decentralization plan, but the funding, etc., would still come from the government agencies and the community and local government support.
You've been given a certain deadline by the ECOC to reply to their charges that this agency has discriminated against Mexican Americans. Do you intend to keep this deadline?
We are making an analysis of the charges, obviously, and working through our attorneys to determine exactly what the ratios are. And before we respond, we have not had adequate time to respond, and that response is being prepared. So I really couldn't answer it, and probably should not, until we make a response.
Our next move, like I left the package down there for Clarence Jones to inspect, since he wants the deputy sheriff down there said that Clarence Jones will inspect the package to determine whether or not, they will be, led into the jail. And so tomorrow I'll call Clarence Jones, and if he can't give me any kind of proper answer, then we'll take all legal action. If it takes this time next year, those packages will be in Dallas County Jail.
From the outside, the Halsey Middle School in Oak Cliff gives the appearance of an office building, with its sleek lines and windowless walls. But inside, you can tell it's a school, yet there's still a difference. Books are stacked in the cafeteria and in various classrooms throughout the building, just waiting to be issued to Halsey's 850 new students. Those students came from temporary quarters at the National Guard Armory on Redbird Lane, and from 4 other schools in the area. Open space sections within the school allow as many as 4 instructors to teach just feet from each other, separated only by a table, a shelf, or just more open space. These areas, according to Principal Carl Chambers, allow for flexibility. One or all teachers may work with all students in the room, or students may be divided into groups for more specific instruction. Chambers says one of the lesser-known sections of the building is on the roof. There is located a plant greenhouse, an animal shelter, a pond, and 2 long plant boxes, all for use by biology and science students. Once the students find out about this, he said, they may try sneaking out of classes just to come up here. There's something else new, too, the modular clock. Its control system allows class change signals to sound only in those rooms affected. In other words, while some students may be scurrying in the halls after a 50-minute period, others continue to study without signals in longer classes. It's complicated and frankly sounds like something just to make it more difficult for the common bell-ringing prankster to dismiss school a bit early. This is Dean Angel, Channel 8 News at Halsey Middle School in Dallas.
That new Constitution should provide for annual sessions and for greater powers of the executive, both as to appointive powers and as to removal powers. And then as a lawyer too, being a civil lawyer, but at the same time being familiar with criminal problems, I think we have to agree that the present penal code is a monstrous thing and must be revised, both as to its substantive law and as to procedural matters. We think the educational services of our state must, of course, draw great attention from a governor. We are strongly opposed to busing of students to achieve racial balance. We believe the governor of Texas should work towards a constitutional amendment to achieve a system where busing would not.
I believe it will give it an additional momentum. I will say this, it is a shame that you have to replace two very capable and experienced men such as Frank Hoke and George Underwood. This was a situation where it was a challenging decision on the part of the City Council. And again, as I say, it was a consensus decision, not a unanimous decision. But I do believe that it will give some new blood and will give new outlooks and again will give Dallas what I think it definitely should have, direct representation to the City Council and through the Council to the people on the very important airport board.
Oklahoma, of course, is a Big 8 power. They were second, I think, in their conference last year. And Texas has been our traditional rival, of course, here in the Southwest.
Being fourth in the nation in the 100 gives you a lot of enthusiasm as you approach this season, doesn't it?
Yes, it sure does. I want to go even higher this year if I can.
Well, how are you coming along? How do sprinters develop as the year progresses?
Well, sprinting is kind of really a difficult thing to follow because right down till the Nationals, usually the sprinters won't be going their top times because of the longer workouts and the weight work and things like that. But as the season progresses and as we do more and more sprinting and start to cut down the weights and cut down the work, our sprints come down faster accordingly. And so right at the end of the year, we usually have a second to a second and a half drop.
What are your Olympic aspirations?
Well, I think I have a chance to make the Olympic team this year. And of course, it's been a dream since I was little. So I'm going to be working out hard this summer for it. And then we'll all go to the trials the 1st of August and see what happens there.
Jerry, we feel like we've got a senior ball club predominantly. We have also a couple of juniors that have played an important role, but primarily an experienced ball club has helped us a great deal.
I know you hoped, but did you anticipate realistically that you'd be 29-0 and 5-0 after the first half of the district?
Well, we're most concerned about the 5-0, Jerry, to be real honest about it. We had hoped to have a real fine season. We had a good season last year and a good ball club last year. I don't know that we ever thought about being 29-0, and hopefully we're not thinking about it too much right now.
You have a senior ball club. Is there anyone in particular, or say, do you have a fireman who can come in and help you out in short periods?
Well, we have I think a boy that's kind of our John Havlicek, Bobby Arnold, who's a junior that comes off the bench and does a real fine job for us. He's averaging around 10 to 12 points a game, and we have 5 seniors and that start for us, plus a senior Murray Gossett on the bench that have done an excellent job all year long.
Who would be the core of the senior group?
Well, inside we have Neil Lemon and David Kimmel, who both started last year. They're both 6'6", 6'6 and a half. We have Tommy Delature and Mac McGee, Steve Nastry at a guard spot.
Have you been able to play your type of game most of the year? Have defenses been improvised to force you into other types?
Well, I'd say yes, probably to both questions. We've been fortunate to play a running type game, which we like. We're averaging 78 points a game right now, and we're playing almost every defense you can imagine. Really have.
There must be a great deal of camaraderie among the players.
Oh yeah, we've been playing together, a lot of us since the 7th grade, and we're a good team. That's, I think, our strong points. We play as a team. We've been together so long, and we're winning. We like it.
You mean then that you can anticipate things? They're just there because you know so-and-so will be at a certain position?
Right. I mean, a lot of times you might make a pass without even looking there because you know he's going to be there. I think that's one reason we've been winning. Another thing is, we have confidence in each other, and I think it's a big part of it.
Parties have a directive from the federal court to adopt a reasonable filing fee schedule. And I think we'll undertake to discharge that burden, and I think it can be done.
Would you consider returning to the convention method of selecting?
No, I doubt that we would. I think that the Republican Party can adopt a more reasonable filing fee schedule, and one that comes within the guidelines set out by the court than the state legislature did.
orchestra has an unlimited artistic potential. And it's a very unique orchestra in that we are in a particular locale which we have several fine universities and, that all have fine music departments, and we have artist performers such as Dr. Gunther, Jim Smith sitting here, and many others in the orchestra that could take their place perhaps in any major symphony orchestra in the United States, and some of them have. But we must communicate to the audience, otherwise I think there's no need for music. It's got to be an art that communicates. And with this in mind, I hope that everybody, and in fact I'd like to invite everybody in the whole community of Fort Worth to begin thinking of this orchestra as their orchestra. This is our Fort Worth Symphony, not we are going to attend a concert of the Fort Worth Symphony, but we are going to attend a concert of our Fort Worth Symphony. And I think if we can get this feeling and this rapport, that we'll be well on our way to excitement, perhaps.
This might eliminate some of the continuity in the board? Possibly. Of course, you're retaining the continuity in the form of Mayor Johnson, but in addition to that, you're getting an operations man who is really conversant and experienced in these matters, in Henry Stewart. And of course, I've been very active in airport board matters, in fact, just returned from Washington in an effort to try to secure airline routes for the board. So I don't believe you're really losing as much continuity with these three as you might have with other possible combinations.
Required.
Effectively from members of the Commissioners Court, wherein the level of service rendered by county government in the year
I'm against any public money or taxpayers' dollars going to finance primaries.
Well, if that doesn't work, then would you want to go to the convention system?
Well, here again, I'm not certain that we can go to the convention system under the present statutes, because the Texas Election Code says that any party that has 200,000 voters or more, which simply means if their candidate for governor, they got 200,000 votes or more in the last primary, has to hold a primary election. So I'm not certain that we can even have a convention. And as a matter of fact, I don't think we can under the present statute.
This is my official resignation to become effective Monday at the close of business. I'm resigning, of course, to run for Congress in the newly created 24th Congressional District.
What about a replacement for you on the City Council?
I have not suggested anyone to replace me, but I did make a recommendation to the City Council today in executive session that they appoint my successor as quickly as possible, and that successor be someone who is representative of the district and the entire city.
Do you have anyone in mind at all as your successor?
No, I have not. In fact, I have refused to make such recommendations to several groups who've talked to me and to several individuals.
This budget has been prepared on a very conservative basis. It will require a conservative attitude on the part of the commissioners and the elected officials during the year 1972, and on that basis I recommend to the court the adoption of this 1972 budget.
She was sitting in the living room having coffee and reading the paper when she heard a car in the driveway. She looked out, it was a truck of some kind, and delivery truck, and a man was coming up to the door with a box of flowers. So she went down to the front door. We live on the second level. And when she opened the door, he grabbed her and taped her eyes and her mouth and her hands. And apparently another man drove the truck up the driveway to the front door, and they put her in the truck and took off.
I believe we are asking for an extension in time through our attorneys.
Do you think that there is unequal representation in the agency between blacks and Chicanos?
I'm not aware of whether there is or not, frankly, at the moment. I really don't know to answer your question on this.
What is your comment on the charges from the superintendent of Dallas Public Schools that the Tri-Ethnic Committee is holding up the needed construction of new public schools in the system?
Well, I think the story has not been told accurately. It's been misinterpreted. If we acted upon right now any decision, and then the Fifth Circuit comes down with an order that would change that decision, all that means is that it's going to be costing the Dallas taxpayers a lot of money for nothing. So if that's what the school board wants and the administration wants, that has to be clarified. We're not going to make a hasty decision that's going to be reversed later and that will cost a lot of citizens in Dallas a lot of money for naught.
The Republican Party is prepared and has been prepared to charge what the court described as reasonable filing fees, and we can finance our own primary. We don't need any state aid, and I think the governor, or I don't think the taxpayers should be required to pay for the primary of the Democrat Party.
I'm personally not in favor of tax dollars going to finance a primary, whether it be Republican or Democrat, because a lot of people say that they're independents and they don't belong to either party, so their dollars, in my judgment, should not go to paying for any primary. However, I think this gives the legislature an opportunity again to assess reasonable and equal filing fees for all candidates. And I think, again, this is why the federal courts have said that they was excessive and not reasonable. And I think this will give the legislature an opportunity to devise a plan, and maybe as a Democrat or a Republican, they will be able to go out and get donations to make up for any difference that might not be able to charge each candidate for their filing fee.